Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Inside Red Dragon Sports. I'm your host, Geoff Hassard, Assistant Director of Athletics and Sports Information Director here at SUNY Oneonta, and tonight we have a very special episode. We have in studio with us SUNY Oneonta graduate and ESPN personality Sal Paolantonio, so please stay tuned after the break where we'll talk some fun times at Oneonta and also some national sports stuff.
What makes D3 special is the ability to participate in my team and within the broader community.
The perfect ending to a perfect season.
Being a D3 student athlete has completely expanded my life.
I learned how to lead. I really found a voice.
What time is it?
It's more about the experience rather than just a sport itself.
Without the experience of being a Division III student athlete, I wouldn't be the person who I am today.
NCAA Division III. Discover, develop, dedicate.
Welcome back to the show. Joining me now is SUNY Oneonta graduate and ESPN personality Sal Paolantonio. Welcome to the show, Sal.
Great to be here, Geoff.
Welcome back to Oneonta.
The campus looks absolutely beautiful. It really does. It's immaculate. It's so well appointed. You walk around, everybody's got a happy, smiling face. It's spectacular.
It's a great place to work.
Yeah.
Now, when you were here in the 70s, of course, as you said, the campus has changed a lot. What was it like to be a student here at that time?
It was really quite different. I mean, first of all we wanted to do was rebel against everything in the 70s.
Right.
You know, we were post-Watergate, post-Vietnam, and you know, if we weren't trying to occupy a building, we wanted to burn it down. There were a lot of protests on campus, and as you know, it was in the middle of the fiscal crisis in the state of New York and the federal government. So the very famous headline in the New York Daily News was, "Ford to New York dropped dead." President Ford at that time did not want to give New York City or New York State any funding to hold it over in 1975. And I remember working on the State Times. As a matter of fact, I was up at the library last night going through State Times editions from 74, 75, and 76 with one of the RAs at Holbert Hall, a guy named Jefferson Cruz, who likes to work in sports and wants to work at ESPN. And we were going through it. There were so many headlines in the State Times that said, "Will Suco close? Big question mark." There was a question mark as to whether this college was going to stay open.
Wow.
There was a question mark as to whether or not Holbert Hall, where I was, which we called Phippy at the time, was going to burn down. We had a number of arsonists. There were all kinds of problems with construction there when it first opened. So it was a time of serious upheaval, and we were all thrown right into the middle of it, and I got a chance to cover a lot of it at the State Times. Right. And, of course, at Woney. I was DJ and a news guy on Woney. Now, we never had any of this.
No.
There were no television. There was no television studio. We had no television equipment.
Right.
There was no mass communications, and there were no journalism classes for me to take.
Right. Now, your major was?
My major was history.
History.
And a minor in English literature.
Oh,
and
okay.
so I took no journalism or mass communications classes at all. Nothing.
Now, certainly, someone actually brought by an article that you had written for the State Times that talked about the budget and how important it was to keep, keep on the athletics and physical education, how important it was to the student body to not lose that funding.
Yes. It actually caused quite a bit of controversy. I wrote a column in the State Times every Friday in the sports section the entire time I was here. And one of the questions that I raised was, do we need varsity sports? It was a three-part series and caused, at one time, nearly the entire State Times newspaper was taken over by the debate about whether or not intramural sports were more important than varsity sports because of the budget crunch.
Right.
And because the Student Association was running out of money,
right,
and a lot of the intramural sports were being shut down, and there were a lot of students who said, hey, you know, you have far more students involved in intramural sports, we should be funding them, and we should cut back on varsity sports. So I tried to generate this debate, and it got really out of control. And a lot of the head coaches, varsity head coaches were coming after me and in the State Times for even raising the question of whether or not varsity sports at this school should be continued.
Now,
so it was pretty contentious. I got to tell you, in fact, the baseball players in the school really came after me.
Really?
Yeah, because I wanted to shut the baseball team down.
Oh, geez. Well, thank God you didn't, because we've been pretty successful over the last 30 or 40 years. Now, as far on that point, with that, did you get to know many of the coaches? I mean, did it become a friendly relationship?
Yeah,
after
the head coach of the basketball team and I
Don Fewelling
came very, very close, shall we say. About as close as me and Bill Parcells when Parcells threw me out of the New York Jets locker room in 1997. Wow. We had that kind of close relationship. In fact, I saw the coach out in front of Hunt Union the first day of my trip here yesterday. Ran into him.
Oh, geez.
And he looked at me just like he looked at me back in 1975. It was the same kind of stare. It was kind of funny. And we talked about what happened. And, you know, he understood exactly what was going down then. It was literally the state government in New York was ready to close down state campuses all over the state. And we were trying to fight tooth and nail for every dollar. Now it's a completely different story, I think, anyway.
Well, I mean, we are in kind of a budget situation where
but not where the school's going to be
shut
down.
Not where they're going to be closed. We're one of the healthiest schools in the SUNY right now.
Yeah, you can tell the school looks, I mean, it really does. It looks, the administration here should be really congratulated. Yeah, it really looks good.
Yeah, Dr. Klanuski and, of course, Dr. Donovan, during his tenure, the school went from, you know, we're a college of first choice.
The last time I was here was 2000 when I was the commencement speech at the Millennium. And I stayed in the president's guest house, and I brought my wife, who's a SUNY alum as well, SUNY Oneonta alum, and my 3 daughters. And just in the 12 years since, the place has grown, and you know, again, the manicure of the operation is just unbelievable. It looks great. Yeah.
Now, of course, now back when you're bringing up whether we should have varsity athletics back in the 70s, I mean, during that time, our men's soccer team played for a national championship. Our men's basketball team, Don Flewelling, coaching that team, played for a national championship in 1977. Our baseball team won a couple of SUNYAC championships. I mean, how do you think that weighed into what you were trying to do as far as, even though you thought maybe we shouldn't, but actually our teams were doing very well?
Well, I never advocated that we get rid of the basketball team or the soccer team. That would have been suicidal.
Right.
I might as well just packed up and gone home. But, you know, I thought that it was an interesting and important debate to raise, and I wasn't by myself. There were a lot of people in student government, a lot of students who felt the same way, especially when they were about to shut down a lot of the intramural sports. Right. So, you know, as a person who covers sports, and I cover them as a reporter, you know, not as a quote-unquote fan, although I'm a fan of this college. Right. I think it's, you know, vitally important at a school of this size, so especially, that you have varsity and intramural athletics working side by side, because not everybody is qualified to be on the basketball team or play in Division I soccer. Right. But they should have that athletic outlet. Very important. Spirit building, team building, school building, community building. I think it's as important as having a TV, radio station, and definitely a newspaper. It's an important club to have, a very important, a vitally important club, especially when we have a national epidemic of obesity among young people.
Right. Now, of course, we're in Division III.
Just sounded like an FM radio. Yeah. It's terrible. So I'm sorry I broke that out. Take that back.
Now, being in Division III, where our, you know, of course, big-time athletics and a lot of money being pumped into these. I mean, yesterday the big announcement about the Kentucky starting 5 being just going to the NBA. And, I mean, the differences. Do you like when you come to a campus of this where we're Division III? I mean, do you like the atmosphere?
You can't lump Division I in with Division III. I think it's completely, you know, apples and oranges. The usually old cliche.
Right.
I mean, it really is. Big-time sports at Division I schools like Ohio State and Kentucky are big-time money makers, especially basketball and football. Right. Here you're dying for every dollar you can get. It's a different thing. So, and I think, to me, the important thing, and I think the important lesson to be learned from big-time varsity athletics is everybody should be included in athletics that wants to be. And if it has a situation where you're not including people, where there's people left out, then that's a bad thing.
Right, right. Now, the money that's being poured into these Division I programs, I mean, is there an opportunity, do you think, maybe down the road where it could funnel and help other situations?
Good luck trying to get that.
You know, I mean, it's you got to
hope. It's a good idea, yeah. I think it's a, you know, in other words, have them taxed.
Yeah.
You know, have them pay a luxury tax like the Yankees. Yeah. Yankees helping out the Mariners. Ohio State helping out Oneonta State. Hey. I got it. It's a good idea. Yeah. I may float that one at ESPN. I like it.
With your involvement in WONY and the student newspaper, I mean, certainly you said that was really how you kind of cut your teeth in getting into what you're doing now. I mean, did that really influence what you're doing now as far as being able to do what you do and do it at a high level? Did you ever think you'd be where you are now?
Vitally important.
Yeah.
You know, I spoke yesterday. We had a long discussion. I sat down in the lounge at WONY with all the students that work there, and they're not very many.
Right.
You know, they're having a lot of turnover, and you know, they need more money in their budget. So I hope that happens in the next couple of years, and I'm going to try to help make that happen. Because to me, the first thing that you have to do if you want to be in communications is be on the radio.
Right. Because
it gives you a chance to develop your voice, develop the iterations of your voice, find the right rhythm of your voice. Allows you to make mistakes on radio that you really can't make on television, and allows you to grow as a communicator. Because, you know, there's a lot of repetitions. It's like in sports. The more reps that you get, the more practice that you get, you're going to get better. And you can get more reps and practice on radio than you can on television. There's just far more opportunities. You're on the air longer. Yeah. So I think it's important. And I think State Times, if you can develop as a writer, it can really supplement, support, augment, and then also, I think, push the launch button as a broadcaster. Because you learn where to use active verbs in your writing that allows you to paint a picture as a broadcaster, and where to use natural pauses for effect with people and deliver information. It's not only important to have information, but you have to know how to deliver it. And it seems, you know, it was kind of difficult because I was discovering all this on my own. Right. You know, there were no mass communications professors here. I had a mentor here, a guy named Jim Capo, who's now a communications professor at Fordham. He was a live-in advisor with his wife, Kay, at Hulbert Hall. And, you know, he really taught me to go out and try it, which I had never had before. Growing up on Long Island, it's like, it just wasn't available to me.
Right. Well, I think what I'd like to do is maybe stop this part of the segment, and we'll go on, and I'd like to come back, and when we do come back, I'd like to talk about how social media has changed the way you do your job and how that's carried over into maybe big-time college athletics and professional sports. So
let's do it.
All right. Well, we'll be back. Please stay tuned. We'll be back with more of our interview with Sal Paolantonio.
Where's my husband? Where's my husband?
Stop.
How's she doing? 2,
She was a passenger. I was T-boned on the passenger side.
We just had some wine. I wasn't even drunk. I was just buzzed.
What? You were just buzzed? Well, sir, you didn't tell us that. In that case, she's just fine.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Really?
No, not really.
Buzz driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Sal Paolantonio, SUNY Oneonta graduate and ESPN personality. Earlier on the show, Sal, we talked about you're coming back to the campus and what it was like to be a student here. Now I want to get into talking about what you do for a living, which is really communications, and how it's really changed a lot in at least the last 5 years. I mean, even longer than that. But the whole social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, where you get your information, how credible is it? How much do you really put credence in it? So how has the social media aspect of the world now changed what you do for your job?
Changed quite a bit. Actually, I went from being a reporter to a personality. I'm interested to know why you use that word. And I can tell, you know, it's honestly, I think people now think of everybody on TV as a quote-unquote personality, as opposed to what I think of myself is just a gatherer and deliverer of information. But the important thing now is everybody needs to have some kind of personable way of communicating, because you have to be able to cut through all of the vehicles that are out there on the highway delivering information to people, or else you're not going to survive. So I love the new technology. I embrace it. I don't use all of it. I think YouTube is fantastic. I don't have a Facebook page, primarily because I don't want to be constantly interacting with, you know, hundreds of people every day. I think it's sort of more of an interference than anything else. But I monitor Facebook, and I have people who monitor Facebook for me, because athletes have Facebook pages. So I employ lots of different people to do that, as well as Twitter accounts. My producers who are with me are also monitoring Twitter accounts. I myself am not on Twitter, but I use people at ESPN who are. I'll give you an example. If I'm at a game on Sunday, which I obviously would always be, and I have a piece of breaking news, you know, that we have to vet it through the news desk at ESPN. And while that's happening, while I'm vetting it through the news desk, and they're disseminating it through all of the, you know, ESPN pipelines to get it to people, you know, internet, TV platforms, radio. We put out something what's called a news wire.
Oh, okay.
In addition to that, I will text Adam Schefter, and Adam is sort of our quarterback for NFL coverage on Sundays for inside information, quote unquote. And I get it to Adam, and I ask him to put it out on his Twitter account, and he has 1.5 million followers, so I can instantly get it to a lot of people. But I don't want to be on Twitter all the time like Adam. Adam has a different role than I do, and thank God he does. He can, you know, reach a lot of people with a lot of information, and it's a lot of inside baseball, and that's what he does. I'm more of a boots on the ground person. I'm sent to the site to be the observer and gatherer of new information on site, which is a role that I like. And I feel that, and this is a philosophy that I kind of give to my students at St. Joseph's University, and I talk to students at schools all over the country, that if I'm always on, I'm never on. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when I'm on TV, which is my primary role, I'm supposed to be on television delivering information to people on TV, in bars, in their living room. Usually people are texting, or they might be on the internet, or they might be making a pot of spaghetti, or they might be serving Cheerios to their kids. The television might be on mute. There's 1 million distractions. So I want them to turn the sound up when they see me, because when they see me, it's an event. So that's why I'm not on Twitter. So I have a different philosophy. It's working for me. When it stops working, I'll probably have to change. But at this point, that's how I attack it. I try to use what I can from social media. I definitely monitor it to see if there's any kind of news, but I'm not beholden to it at this point yet. And I can see where some people are because it's their job.
Right. Now,
so I have sort of a systematic approach to it.
And it's
you know, it's sort of like a trial by error. If it works, I use it. If it doesn't, I don't. It's constantly changing.
Well, that's what I mean, and there's just so much out there, and there's so much information coming and going. I mean, those people that kind of vet it for you, I mean, it's credible. You're going to report what you think is true. And
right. I have a couple of gatekeeping operations because, you know, if your mother says she loves you, check it out, right? So I make sure I check everything out before it gets on the air. Or else I go flip burgers at Burger King, which I don't want to do.
No,
I don't want people getting their information from Jay Glazer and John Clayton and other people. I want them from me.
Right.
So I make sure everything is vetted completely. And there are 2 processes that I use. First of all, there's the taste test for me. Does it pass muster, first of all? Then I authenticate it through my producer who's with me. And he usually has his laptop and he's working that angle of things. I will then also check a source. You know, okay, Eli Manning has a sprained foot. It's Sunday morning. Eli tells me he has a sprained foot, right? So I know that that's a good source if he told me himself. But if I see somebody on Twitter saying he has a sprained foot, I have to check it with Eli.
Right.
He's right there in front of me, so I'll walk out onto the field and check it with him. So that's just an example.
Right.
And then the last thing is that I'll call ESPN's stats and information department if it's a stat or something like that to make sure.
What are the dangers of social media for you?
Inaccuracy. Number 1. That's it. My brand is something that I protect every day. So I want to make sure I look good, I sound good, and my information is good. If any of those things are bad, people will click somewhere else very quickly. There's so many other options for people. So I can't have bad information.
Do we think it's a good idea to monitor college athletes on Twitter? I mean, for saying some things. I mean, there were some scandals that went on because kids were tweeting about their coach or about certain athletes. I mean,
you mean as a sports information department?
Well,
absolutely.
As a college
I think
athletics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you should be monitoring what your folks are putting out on Twitter. You know, in a way that's not surreptitious or illegal. No question about that. You want them to have freedom.
Right.
That's what it's all about. It's freedom of an exchange of information and allow them to reach fans quickly is important. But I think it's really important for athletic departments or professional football, basically any professional team, sit down with those athletes and say, okay, this is the tool that you have available to communicate with fans. If you don't abuse it, it's going to be a beautiful thing. It might even lead down the road to you getting some notoriety, you know, and gaining some fame. But fame is a double-edged sword. It can definitely cut you and hurt you.
Right. What do you think of the?
That's why I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the reason why I'm not on Twitter is because I realize that there's a huge downside to it. Interacting with that many people, you're bound to say something stupid.
That somebody's going to call you on, or.
Well, no, that I'm going to get fired for.
Well,
yeah.
For you,
called
you know,
on, yeah. I mean,
well, I mean,
call
as far
on is
as
fine, but I don't want to get that call that said, "Hello."
Yeah. What are you doing?
You're on Deadspin.com for saying what? Not going to happen to me.
Right. What do you think are the biggest challenges for big time athletics? Really, in your experience.
Money.
Money.
The infiltration of money and the corruption of sports. That's the #1 problem.
Now, do you think that these student athletes at that level?
We're talking about Division I.
Yeah, Division I, where they have those aspirations.
Why are we talking about Division I if we're a Division III school?
Well, I just wanted to get a perspective on what you thought, maybe as far as, you know, these guys and gals that are trying to, you know, go to that next level.
You know, it's a very complicated subject that I think people have, you know, very defined views about.
Right.
My view is not as defined because I don't cover college sports, but what I see, Geoff, and this is just my opinion, is I see a crisis in the leadership at all levels of professional and college sports. When you have the scandal you had at Penn State and Ohio State, when you have, for the first time in NFL history, a head coach suspended for a year because he has a pay-for-injury system that's clearly in violation of the rules and clearly in violation of the moral imperative of professional athletics. When you have a manager of a baseball team who's suspended for 5 games because he says something about Fidel Castro that's offensive to an entire American community where he works and lives and makes his money.
Right.
You have a crisis in leadership. And I think it's important for those people in a position of leadership to take stock and assess where they are and their authority and their obligations and responsibility and hold themselves personally accountable. And when that starts, people start looking in the mirror and start realizing the importance of holding themselves accountable. That will trickle down to their coaches and their players.
And that's what I believe that as well.
I'm off my soapbox.
No, but that's a
you
great
asked me
answer,
the question.
and I wanted the answer. I mean, that was what I was looking for, and it's great that you answered that question. Thank you.
Well,
as we close here, we're getting towards the end of our interview. Memorable moments as a reporter? I mean, can you point to maybe 1 or 2? I know you got a million of them. You got a million stories. Working with those guys.
You mean as a reporter at ESPN?
Yeah.
I have a lot. You know, this is my 18th year at ESPN. I have a lot of memorable moments. I think, you know, there have been, I've covered some extraordinarily high moments for professional athletes, and I've seen the depths. I've sat in the courtroom in front of Plexico Burress and listened to him talk to his wife and son moments before he was handcuffed and put in jail after he was sentenced. And I have been on the field and talked to Tom Brady after he won his first Super Bowl. And I've been on the field with Eli Manning after he won both of his Super Bowls. So I've seen the highs and the lows, and, you know, it's been cool.
Yeah.
Be a witness to sports history, get a chance to tell people about it, give my perspective, and get paid for it. Pretty good.
Yeah, I know. And you would, SUNY Oneonta, your education, would you?
What education?
Oh, come on.
Great education. Here's the thing. I had great professors here. I had great mentors from the moment I walked onto campus. Phil and Cal Preston, who are the dorm directors here at Phippy Hall. Jim and Kay Capo. Jim and Kay Capo were instrumental in getting me involved in communications. Steve and Gail Rubin. Steve was my mentor in the English department and also the advisor to the State Times. Paul Italia, also in the English department. Jay Power, terrific guy.
Jay Power.
Great guy, my mentor in the history department. Got me involved in New York City again after I came back up to upstate New York. Sent me back into the city to get my doctorate in street smarts. He was a great man.
Yeah,
great man.
We actually have an award named after him for our athletic department. We have a weight room named in his honor. For all
I'd
the
like to
stuff
see
he's done
that.
for everything.
I want to see that.
It's over in Chase. We can.
I want to check
take
that
care
out.
Of that. Yep.
Yeah, and Bob Moynihan. Yeah, in the English department. Great. I mean, I had great teachers and great mentors. They knew how to push my buttons and drive me. You know, I graduated in 3 years here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is hard
I got
for
pushed.
Well,
pushed hard.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And we are glad and we are proud that you are a SUNY Oneonta graduate.
Listen, I'm so humbled to come back, be asked to come back here. I really am. I mean, it's really, I feel like it's a great honor to be asked to come back, be able to share my experiences, be able to talk to students. I learned a lot just in these 2 days. Yeah. And I want to come back.
Well, we certainly hope that you come back, and we want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule and
totally
coming
my
and visiting
pleasure.
us.
Glad to do it.
Thank you very much.
All right, great.
All right, and I'd like to thank my very special guest tonight, Sal Palantonio of ESPN, and of course a SUNY Oneonta proud graduate. And we'd like to always remind you that you can follow our athletics on www.oneontaathletics.com. We'd like to thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time on Inside Red Dragon Sports.